about 25 years ago or something like that, in the early 80s, there was a minority of psychologists, not affiliated necessarily, but independently said, look, enough. We don't really think there's enough theory behind IQ tests, which is really a major criticism of IQ tests, is there really isn't much there. They were developed, as we've been talking about, because of historical circumstance. So Howard Gardner is really the most prominent of these, and he's the fellow who starting at the early 1980s, came up with this idea of multiple intelligences. And I think in the beginning he had 7, now he might be up to 9 or something like that, but they're far broader than what the traditional psychologist view was. So they would include interpersonal intelligence, intrapersonal intelligence, and musical intelligence, bodily kinesthetic. So the old guard of psychology can't stand the idea still, of course, because what they're interested in is something that they call G, which stands for general intelligence. IQ tests don't work, obviously, if there are multiple intelligences. There has to be just one. If they want to rank all 6 billion of us, they've got to have this test and an intelligence that is just one thing, that operates regardless of what you're doing or where you are. So if you're figuring out a complex physics problem, it's the same intelligence that's operating if you're having a difficult conversation with your mother or whatever it is. It would be the same. Gardner would say...
I couldn't do either.
You know, Gardner would say there are different kinds of intelligence, and you're good at some, maybe, and bad at others, that were far more varied. What's interesting about Gardner is he's not, I wouldn't imagine that he's particularly pro-test. He didn't do this to devise tests. So, as we've been talking about this, a lot of what's going on is it's the institutions that use IQ tests and the SATs and stuff like that. So institutions haven't grabbed onto Howard Gardner's version of what intelligence is. How could they? The people who've grabbed onto Howard Gardner are the educators.
This excerpt is brought to you by the Massachusetts School of Law, the leader of reform in legal education and a leader in multimedia education for the public. To view the full interview and for a full listing of MSL's programs, log on to mslaw.edu.